Alright, I could use like a lake of coffee about right now.
There you go.
What's this?
The Intel's i7 8700K Coffee Lake.
No, I'm pretty sure this is Kaby Lake with just 2 extra cores. I really just wanted some coffee. This is going to be the weirdest Coffee Lake video you've seen. Right here in my hands is an engineering sample of the 8700K. 2 extra cores slapped onto a Kaby Lake. Yes, I'll take it. For the price point, yes, of course I'll take that. So many lakes I've been swimming in lately, and I think I got some leeches. I don't know what that means. Maybe they're power leeches. Yeah, they're draining the power. These things aren't power hungry, guys, but they're really fast for the money. Right now in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to break this down. We're going to overclock this thing. We're going to give you some productivity benchmarks. We're going to do that on these ASRock boards because it's what we have, and also these things can really overclock. But one thing I also want to focus on is playing with the strap, guys. That's what we're going to do. Since these guys have an engine for that, we're going to actually disable the hyper-threading. And we're going to test this thing, pretend against an i5, so we can speculate what the, I guess, the non-K i5s are going to be like when it comes to overclocking using BCLK overclocking. So we'll do that in this video as well. It's not completely scientific, but it's going to be something to maybe look forward to. So let's get down to business. Josh, get in here and let's talk about this thing.
We did the videos on the ASRock boards, but we were having so much fun with the 8700K that they sent us, and just playing with the overclocking on it, that we're going to do a video on that too. So I pulled up some basic benchmarks, some just generic results for you guys, just so you can get an idea of what kind of performance we're looking at.
Let me know what the system is real quick. So we got the Fatality motherboard. That's the ASRock T370 Fatality.
Yep.
Hall of Fame GTX 1080 right there.
Absolutely.
Some Nocto air cooling going on there, and beneath that we have, where's the RAM? Can't even see it.
You can't even see
hiding
it.
there. It's a
HyperX. Yep.
HyperX RAM under there. So that's DDR4. All right. Anyway, on to the results.
So we ran some pretty basic benchmarks. We're just kind of giving you an idea of what kind of performance you'd be finding. I mean, everybody's going to be covering this chip. So we just ran Cinebench, we ran Geekbench 4, and we ran 7-zip. Because they're just some basic benchmarks. They work pretty well to show you what's going on. And we ran them up against the 7700K that we did earlier this year, and our Ryzen 7 1800X. Again, we did it earlier this year, but it's still basically relevant. And then our 8700K, and it says 4.9 gigahertz. There's a story to that. We'll get to it in a second. In Cinebench, it just destroys them all. In Geekbench, it also destroys them all. Well, yeah, it still does. And in 7-zip, okay, a little bit different here. It's still destroying pretty much everything, but it's much closer with the 1800X on multi-thread. And then we ran gaming benchmarks because, oh, you guys are going to be wanting to play games with this new CPU that's so much faster than the 7700K. Witcher 3, it wasn't fantastic, but we did get 109 average FPS, which is way higher than the others. Not significantly higher, but high enough. The frame times went down, which was good. The frame time, or the FPS minimum was a lot worse. Arma 3, again, ran really high, much better than the other systems. With better frame times, better average, and a better minimum FPS. Shadow of Mordor, which we've brought forward from all of our tests previously. We love using this game for benchmarking. Our FPS average is the second highest, with Ryzen just below it, the 7700K just above it. But our FPS minimum is the highest of all 3 systems, at 97 FPS. And our frame times equal across the board. Got some basic benchmarks, basic tests, some gaming benchmarks for you guys. But there's that little secret that I mentioned earlier in the video, 4.9 gigahertz on all 6 cores with hyper-threading enabled. Well, you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, that must be running pretty hot. And it was. We were actually getting about 96 degrees as our hottest core. But if you knock that overclock down to 4.8 across all 6 cores, you can get it around 85 degrees. It's a little bit nicer. This real cool thing about the way that Kaby Lake and, of course, Coffee Lake works is that you can set multiple core ratios. So at our single core, we're actually running at 5.2, with the second core below it at 5.1, and then all the other cores at 4.9. So it levels itself off. This chip overclocks like a beast. Now, caveat to that, ours is an engineering sample. That's not going to be representative of any retail box chips, but we do know that it's capable of it. So if you might get lucky and get that Jesus chip, that golden silicon, and get those kinds of results. As long as you are maybe willing to go with a really high-end cooling system, you should see some pretty decent temperatures. Because at stock, this thing is a beast and it spits hellfire. Now, we're expecting it to be about $360 to $400 depending on where you are. This is a part that's going straight up against Ryzen the 1700 and the 1700X, and maybe not the 1800X because that has the higher clock rate. You know, we were just showing the stock clocks for Ryzen on our benchmarks. Obviously, you know, go check out our other video where we overclocked Ryzen, and you'll see that those scores go way up when you start increasing clock rate. So this is going to be for somebody who's really a all-in-one person who really wants to do really high-end video editing. They want to do maybe fluid simulation on CPU. Most people are using graphics cards for that now, but there's always some market for it. Anything with AVX, anything with SSE, and anything that needs more than 4 cores. Like Arma 3, for example, loves having more cores.
So we're about to end this video with the 8700K, but then we remember that we promised you guys some speculation on what the i5 is going to be like. And what we did is kind of strange. We cut off hyperthreading and then limited this thing as if it were a non-K part to really show you what those are going to be like. So we are not using the multiplier. We're using this ridiculous ASRock motherboard here with the BCLK engine to overclock it using the front side bus, and here's what we were able to achieve.
So, like Logan said, BCLK overclocking on an i5 might be a thing again. This is going to be great. We did our little emulation of an i5. We got some really high clocks, 5.2 gigahertz on 2 cores, and then 5.1 on all 6 total. And with that, we stayed under our thermal limit. We're at 81 degrees Celsius with a maximum of 88. And we got some Cinebench scores for you. Look at our single thread. We went from 218 to 225 with a multi of 1246. And that's just a taste of what those chips could do if you can actually do BCLK overclocking. Now, Intel in the past has tried to lock this down, but we might be in the golden age of FSB overclocking again. A la the i5-8400.
So there you have it. That's our quick little video on the 8700K. Now, I want to reiterate and remind you guys, this is not completely indicative of what everybody else is going to be seeing with theirs. Ours seems to be Jesus Silicon. It is ridiculously overclockable. And let's just break this down and just tell you who I think should be buying this part. If you're someone who wants the most extreme gaming but also needs lots and lots of threads, this is a hell of a lot better than Intel's older options. But I feel like the price should have been a little bit better since, you know, like 6 cores should have been a thing like a long time ago. Also, the thermal throttling on this is a bit too ridiculous. So what I'm going to do is keep recommending the high-end Ryzen parts when it comes to uber productivity. And when it comes to gaming, I'm going to recommend something different. Let's look at the i5s. Let's just keep looking out for maybe the 8600K. That's going to be an interesting part for the price. It'll be easy to overclock since you'll be able to mess with the multiplier. But the one thing I want to look at, now that we have the BCLK engine on these ASRock boards, and I think Asus is doing something like this, if you can overclock using the frontside bus, well, the 8400 is going to be one hell of an interesting part. It could be very disruptive. If you can bump up the CPU frequency on that, if you get a good piece of silicon, make it fast enough, it could really make the Ryzen parts be completely irrelevant if it's around 200 bucks. That's going to be rough for AMD to compete with, especially when you look at the gaming performance on the Coffee Lake stuff in general. It's pretty ridiculous. The i3 that's coming out may also be pretty interesting now that it's going to be, 4 cores. That could be an interesting part as well. So let's just keep looking forward. Right now, this 6-core, it's got some power issues. It's got some throttling issues. It's freaking fast. But for the money, the price-performance ratio might still be elsewhere. So that's where we're going to end this right now. And good luck in the Silicon Lottery if you're going to be playing this round. See you guys in the comments. Grab a t-shirt and be sure to grab a...
Buy a shirt.
That is a very esoteric shirt that may or may no longer be available. Who knows? Maybe a few of those left.
Buy the WASD one then.
Yeah, buy the WASD one by Dvorak. And be sure to check out some of the Fennec gear online. Let me know what you guys think. We'll see you guys in the comments.